Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Zumlin, and today I have Kellie Hall Sbrocchi. I've worked with Kellie, actually her last year of competing for the Miss USA system. She competed for Miss California, and I worked with her that year, it was about 4 years ago. And she has just been a powerhouse to work with. Such a great student. She's a naval officer. She's a podcaster. She's an influencer. And she was first runner-up to Miss California. Let's welcome her. All right, Kellie, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Afternoon. What time is it? I don't know.
Afternoon, I think, depending on the time zone.
Afternoon. Awesome. Okay, so because not everybody knows you, but I love you, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, absolutely. It's so weird. We have been working together now for almost 4 years. We've known each other for 4 years, maybe even longer than that. And a lot has happened since. So I'm Kellie Hall Sbrocchi. By day, I'm a lieutenant in the Navy. I'm active duty, which is pretty awesome, keeps me busy. But by night, I say I always live kind of this Hannah Montana lifestyle. I'm a podcast host. I'm a lifestyle influencer. I'm a speaker. And you and I connected because I have competed in the Miss USA system 4 times. So it's been an awesome journey, and I've learned a lot along the way.
So what is one of the things that you feel like you've learned that has made the biggest impact on your life?
Well, in a more broad sense, I think just diving in and doing the scary thing has always benefited me in some way. So, whether it was joining the Navy, that was the scarier choice. I was absolutely terrified. I thought I wouldn't fit in. I thought it wouldn't be a place for me. But I thought also, what if? Like, what if I get through that and I'm better for it and I will prove that to myself? Same thing with pageantry. I thought about Miss USA and I was kind of like, I don't know, that's kind of crazy. And then I was like, but what if I do that? And it's scarier and I've never done it before. I'll probably learn so much about myself and really push myself out of my comfort zone. That's exactly what happened. So I think in general, like I just am kind of fearless in that sense of if it's kind of scary, it's probably something you should really consider because there's a reason why it's scary to you and it's only going to make you better once you kind of get to that other side and you accomplish it.
So one of the things, because I named the podcast She Wins, I really am curious about people's definition of the word winning. So what's your definition?
Yeah, I think it's just that. It's going through these difficult journeys, and it's not always about achieving that first placement, whether it's like a crown or getting across the finish line first or hitting a metric that you were trying to reach. Like, it's not always about that. Winning really is becoming a better version of yourself through the process, maximizing your potential. It's not technically, I did not win Miss California USA in 2020. I didn't walk away with the crown. I didn't go to Miss USA. But reflecting, like, I truly won in every sense of the word because I was so much better for it. And I learned so much about myself. So many doors opened because of that opportunity. And it was up to me to walk through them, and I did. So, like, you can't say that I lost. Like, I absolutely didn't lose. So, but I feel bad for those people who kind of get in those situations and they don't take advantage of that opportunity or they don't reflect on the benefits that did come from that experience. So they still lost, even if they didn't get first place or whatnot. So I think that that's the true definition of winning.
So following along, so you not only are you a naval officer, have you competed in pageants, you were a photographer, you've done so much, and you do some influencing, so you have quite a following on Instagram. What has the response been for you? Is it 100% positive? Is it 80-20? Is it 50-50? What, and I know there's some negative that you've had to deal with. So tell me a little bit about that and how you handle those harder days.
Yeah, I think it's completely dependent on the demographic you're asking, to be honest. Like, if you're asking my active duty peers and fellow sailors, it's probably more split down the middle, 50-50. I heard this quote from one of my mentors, and she was like, have you heard of the 20-20-60 rule? And I was like, no, what does that mean? And she's like, 20% of the people love you. 20% of the people hate you. 60% of people don't have an opinion. They literally don't care. and you focus so much on that 20% that might hate you, and you let that affect your entire opinion or your confidence, your ability to move forward and charge towards certain opportunities, instead of focusing on the 20% that are supporting you. And then also remembering, like, a lot of people actually don't care what you're doing. Like, they're focused on their own lives. So when it comes to, like, my military peers, I think there's a lot of people in the military that have much, much harder jobs than I do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, they're forward deployed, they have really difficult positions or rates or whatnot. I'm a human resources officer. The Navy needs those too, hence why I have a job. But I think that sometimes there's tension because people think that Navy's one size fits all and we have equally as difficult positions. So they can't understand how I'm able to do what I'm able to do and balance this multi-passionate lifestyle. It's only because my job affords me the opportunity to have a little bit more balance. And that hasn't consistently been the case. There's been jobs I've held in the Navy. I don't have a life at all. My life is a Saturday and Sunday. That's it. It's not throughout the week, but every season has its challenges. So I think that's where the split 50-50 support comes from in the military, is that not understanding or not being, like, aware of what my platform is, what my passion is, and kind of what I'm trying to do here. But if you ask my target audience, which is women and young women, or of support, it's really incredible. More recently, I went to the Naval Academy actually last month. And it was really amazing to me. I've been doing social media for about 5 years now. And after one of my speaking engagements, I had this line of female midshipmen waiting to talk with me and meet me and get selfies with me, which was really cool. And there were one or two of them that started following me when they were 14. 14 when I first began this journey. And they're 19 now at the Naval Academy. And they're like, ma'am, I found you when I was 14, 15 online. And, like, you're the only reason why I ever considered the Navy, because I'm so feminine and I have other interests, but you're showing me how to balance this lifestyle. So that is winning. That's winning to me. Like, my target audience is understanding what I'm here for. They're feeling inspired by it. And at the end of the day, that's the only kind of support I could ever want, is that kind of audience.
What was a time in your life where you had to develop a unique solution to a difficult problem?
I think more recently, well, this has kind of been a continuous problem, if you will. I have this knack for always finding opportunities outside of the military that I really want to exercise, right? And that's not typical for most members of the military. So it's both a problem and a blessing, for my chain of command, right? I never want to be seen at work as, like, oh God, like, what's she gonna do now? Like, what's she up to at this time? What's she gonna ask us for? I want to be seen as that person at work that's reliable, that is hardworking, that executes my job to the level that, not just satisfaction, but, as high as I can reach it. So that way, when I bring them these opportunities, they're excited about it. So, for example, Miss USA, it's active duty service members don't typically compete in pageants, especially at a level like Miss USA, right? So, problems arise there. How does that balance? How does that work? Like, how do I have a full-time job in the Navy and also pursue Miss USA? But I sit down and I reflect and I talk to mentors and I devise a plan. So that way, when I bring this to my superiors, they don't have questions. I have answers to all of their possible questions. I think one of the best things you can do when you're trying to create your own lane and devise your own plan for your life that may be a little bit different than the person to your left or to your right is to think about what your options are, and try to think ahead of what the questions might be to those around you, whether it's loved ones, superiors, bosses, so that way you can alleviate some of those stresses. So I get very creative, when it comes to that, but it's both a problem and a blessing. This isn't the first time I've done the Miss USA system 4 times, and that's typically under 3 different leaderships, and 3 different chains of command. And I have to craft a plan to make both work. And every single time I've been able to do that. So at this point, I know I'm like, look, if they have a question, I'll find the answer to it. I'll reach out to mentors, um, and I'll keep my priorities straight. Because first and foremost, I am an officer in the Navy. I want to ensure that they don't ever think that I have my priorities not aligned with what is needed of me as a naval officer.
So one of my favorite images of you, like when I think about all of the things you've been through and everything, one of my favorite images of you is you in the Naval Academy and being so incredibly much smaller, I guess you could say, than everyone else, and still, I don't know, succeeding. So tell me a little bit about that journey. What was maybe an experience that you had that might have shocked other people?
Yeah, it's so funny, Heather. You and I have spent so many hours having endless sessions, really digging into my past experiences, right? You don't realize some of those fundamental moments are making you into the person that you're going to become later. And I think I was just determined. I knew, like, when I was in high school, I was a competitive athlete and I was an 800 runner, right? So as an 800 runner, I was always the smallest person on that starting line because most of them were these really, really tall women, girls, mind you, we were like teenagers, right? Because you have to have those long legs and that muscular kind of sprinter build to succeed in that race. I was just quick. I don't know. I have, I'm 5'2", but I have a lot of long legs on me, and I was quick and I was determined. So it never fazed me. I got on that starting line, and my mom has all these photos of me and like the height difference between my competitors, right? So I brought that same energy to the Naval Academy. I knew physically, yeah, I might be like smaller than the rest, and I was very right. I was much, much, much tinier than all of my peers. But I was like, I mean, up to this point, it's never been an issue. Like, I'm determined, I'm motivated, I'm dedicated. I'm still going to get the job done. I'm going to prove I earned my spot to be here. So you can't live, I think your mindset has to be realistic. Like, as suspected, the day I showed up to the Naval Academy and we started our kind of like our own boot camp, we call it Plebe Summer at the Naval Academy for 6 weeks. The day that I started my boot camp, I knew I would be a target. Knew. People were, my detailers, they're screaming, they're yelling. There's big, tough, muscular people. They spotted me immediately and they were like, ooh, the weak one. They want to grill me. They want me to quit. They want me to cry. Like, that's what their goal was. Their goal is to break you down and weed out those who don't deserve to be there right away. So just based on my physical stature, I knew that was going to happen to me. And I was right. And that's how I spent my first 2 days at the Naval Academy. It was people screaming at me. And inside, I was like, you'll see. You'll see. And I just sit there and I would take it and I would be fierce and I wouldn't let it affect me. Because on day 3, we took our physical fitness tests. And when I took my physical fitness test, no one knew I was recruited to run track and cross country at the Naval Academy. Kept that under wraps. And went out there and I beat like 80% of the boys in my company. And I did just as many push-ups, just as many sit-ups, and maxed my physical fitness test. And it's crazy in the military how much emphasis is placed on your physical stature and your ability to be physically fit. They treated me so differently after that, because they saw I was small, but I was fierce and I was competitive and I can hold my own weight. So that kind of set the tone for me during that boot camp experience and throughout my time in the Navy. Don't let the opinions and the stereotypes of other people impact the way you see yourself. You have the ability to do whatever you set your mind to. And just because a stereotype in the military is a really tall man who's muscular doesn't make it any less possible for me to be successful as a leader as a 5'2" female. And that's kind of what I've carried out throughout my nearly 10 years active duty now, and also in my passions outside of the Navy.
So my father always says everything we go through in life acts as preparation for something in the future. Do you feel like that experience, even even that experience has been something that has shaped you or helped you for something you're experiencing now.
Absolutely. Because I face judgment and pushback to this day. To this day. There is not a single time I have not reported to a command. Currently, I think I'm in my sixth command. Like I said, 10 years active duty now. Every single time I show up, I get sized up. They see this really petite woman who looks like she's 17, who's wearing a full face of makeup. And if they've previously looked up my name online, they've already made judgments about my experiences in pageantry or modeling, but they have not seen me in action at work. They don't know how dedicated I am to the mission. They don't know how passionate I am about leading, how much I want to take care of my people. They haven't seen that yet. So at this point, I'm unfortunately used to being misjudged when I show up to work. And I give myself like a 90-day period. They don't know that, but that's what I give myself. I'm like, just wait, Kellie. In 90 days, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. They're going to see your work ethic and they're going to see your drive. They're going to see how much you care. And they're going to stop caring about what you look like on the outside. So those preparations as a 19-year-old at the academy and me succeeding at the Naval Academy kind of gave me the confidence to even now as a lieutenant commander select, remember, like, I deserve to be here. They'll see it. And my size has nothing to do with my ability to lead. So definitely, and even my outside passions, whether it's pageantry or modeling or photography, I think, again, dealing with the stereotypes of others, it makes you reflect and think, why? Why am I getting so much, criticism, or why am I getting so much judgment, or why is this such a big deal, or why is the fact that I'm 5'2" is such an issue? Like, why are you treating me different than the person next to me? And then you realize you're not doing anything wrong, and that it's their fault that they have those stereotypes, and you can't let them affect your ability to move forward.
I think so many of us deal with that, where other people are making assumptions about us, maybe based on how we look or what we do or what we say, or how we vote, who knows. And so then making these assumptions of maybe what we're like on the inside, and it's not necessarily fair, but it happens.
Right.
And that's probably where we landed when you and I were having this discussion. It was after Miss California. And maybe you can talk us through a little bit of this story, but after Miss California, when you were first runner-up, trying to decide what to do next, and you had this idea for a podcast, and then we had this conversation about names. So do you want to share a little bit of that experience? Because that was a really fun discussion, I feel like.
Yeah, Heather, I'm so thankful for our conversations. They've affected me not just in pageantry. I built an entire platform on social media founded in some of those discussions that you and I have had, because it makes me reflect so much. And it's tough, and you and I were working together for Miss California to narrow down one part of my brand. I'm so multidimensional. I have interest in modeling, photography, motivational speaking, life as a naval officer, what I face as a naval officer, being feminine, wearing makeup, like trials, tribulations. So, we kind of packaged that up for the judges. And then afterward, kind of in the wake of losing, right, getting first runner up, or quote, losing, right? You and I talked about like what's next. And I wanted to start a podcast. We're like, well, why wait for Miss USA to give you a platform? Give yourself a platform. So we started jiving on names and titles and like, what do we want this podcast to be about? And you said just that. You're like, you're doing all of these things, and yet so many of your followers or your peers, like, they don't understand why you're doing it. Like, you're just so misunderstood in like your intention all the time, and why you want to do a pageant. And you're like, that's it. You never won a Miss USA title, but you're the queen of being misunderstood. And so that's kind of how it was born, and I still am to this day.
And I love that. I know you're on a pause on the podcast because you have one of the things that you've been working on is balancing life and making sure that you're giving enough attention and time to all of the things that matter to you. And since so many things matter, sometimes things have to take a back seat. So I know you
Right.
have your podcast kind of on pause, but there's several seasons that people can go back and listen to. And you and I have talked 3 different times on
Maybe
your,
4, honestly.
it might
But
be.
yeah.
It might be. But I love what you've done with that because I feel like you've been so instrumental, not just for people who want to pursue the military and who are women, but really for anyone who wants that little added oomph or energy. So I have another question,
Yeah.
and you probably have so much content that you could share. So has there ever been like a piece of advice that you have been given that has made the most significant impact for you?
Oh my gosh. Um, I think I don't know if there's like one specific piece of advice because I'm very blessed to have a lot of different mentors in my life in all of the different areas. Um, but reflecting on my past experiences, I think just simply, why not? Those 2 words have been so powerful to me. And they were told to me by my mom when I was in high school. And almost every single experience I've had, starting from the 5th grade, I came home and I was like, Mom, I think I want to run for class secretary. And she was like, Well, why not class president? And I literally didn't do it because there was a boy. Like I just kind of like assumed for some reason that like secretary like fit my role, right? And I remember thinking like, well, I don't know. Like I didn't have an answer for her. And she was like, why not? Why not run for class president? And then I went on to run for class president in 8th grade. And then I was class president all 4 years in high school,
Nice.
and then I just, all those little things, like same thing with doing Miss USA and, all those like times I think, oh, like maybe I shouldn't do that. Or maybe, I don't know, it might be a little bit too different. Then I quickly think, why not? Because the answer already lies within your heart. It might be because you're going to get pushback or because your peers may not understand or your friends might make fun of you. And there's a deeper rooted question there, right? Like, well, why would my friends make fun of me? Well, because they're not really good friends or because you don't support you in the way that you need to be supported. Maybe you need to reflect on that. Like maybe there lies the issue itself. So I always, when I speak to audiences in schools, one of the keynote speeches I give is that question, why not? Because I think you can unpack a lot there. And like I said, it started from honestly like the time of being a kid, and it's changed a lot of my perspective on how I view opportunities in life.
So what's next for you? What are you saying why not about now?
Heather,
you say
you already know. So I will say that I started my time in this current role in the Navy. So I have 3 years at this position in Chicago, which has been really challenging as a leader. So I have that going on. And then I am saying yes to a lot of opportunities on social media. I'm getting asked to work and collaborate with a lot of awesome companies. I have definitely been invited a lot more recently to do speaking engagements, which has been great. The podcast is currently on hold, but by hold, I mean like I pause it for like 2 months. I have 109 episodes and I'm not giving up on it. I just need to balance out a little bit of life. And then I may or may not be prepping for another competition. So yeah, I
we'll just wait
know.
for that
That's in
announcement.
the works. What was that, Heather?
We'll just wait for that announcement. So just follow.
Yeah.
So tell people how they can follow you. How can they keep up with you?
The best way to find me is on Instagram at Kellie.Sbrocchi, my name. I always check my messages and take time to respond back to followers. So that's the best way. And I have my email on Instagram as well. I'm also on TikTok, but honestly, I never check my messages or my comments there. So I would focus on Instagram. And then my podcast is Miss MISS Understood podcast on iTunes and Spotify.
So good. Okay, so if you could choose one episode, not necessarily one that you had with me, but like one episode that has been the most successful from your podcast, like what has been?
Ooh,
Like maybe a topic that's
one
big.
of my earliest episodes, I don't have my phone in front of me, but I think it's like 13 or 14. I recorded with my roommate, Jackie Barnum, and we talked about um, what it's like being females in the military and like what we faced and how to make yourself better and stronger for it, regardless of the pushback that you might get or the stereotypes that might be placed on you. That has done really, really well over the last 4 years. It's one of my most popular episodes. But really, I mean, it's a personal development podcast. So I have dating tips and marriage trials and tribulations and things I regret about my wedding, things I faced in the military and how I overcame them. There's a lot there for sure. So whatever your flavor is, grab a spoon. It's probably on the podcast.
I love that. I love that. Kellie, you're so much fun. I want you to leave with one last either a nugget of advice and a story that has changed you. Like 2 minutes left. What do you want to say to everybody before we end?
No, I think so often now I spend a lot of time reflecting. Um, if something feels off, it's probably because it is, right? Like if something doesn't bring you joy, like you have such little time, right? Like you really have such little time, both like on this earth and in your free time, and you have to constantly reflect. And so I focus on the time that I can control, which is typically outside of work, on the things that bring me joy. And if I walk away from an experience or a lunch or whatever it is, and I'm not ignited by it, I typically think why. And most of the time, I'll walk away from it right then and there. But then when I am ignited by it, I think, okay, how can I do more of that? Everything that I'm doing now, it's so quick to say, like, oh, influencer, podcaster, 109 episodes, 120,000 followers, like, must be nice. All of that is a building block from initially talking to myself and being like, oh, am I having fun doing this? Okay, cool. Like, let's keep doing that. Right. And that started 5 years ago. So 5 years fast forward, like, that's how I have all these opportunities now, is I was being honest to what brings me joy. So it's easy for me. It's easy for me to dive into all of these options and opportunities because I'm happy doing it. So reflect, think about the things that really ignite you and make you excited, dive into them more and stop being afraid because really awesome things will come from it.
Awesome. So I have an opportunity for everyone who's watching or listening is Kellie and I are going to spend more time together. So if you are not a Patreon member, I highly recommend that you join my Patreon membership. Kellie and I are going to talk to women, and then we're also going to talk directly to pageant participants, and she's going to give us not the tea, but the solutions to the problems.
Yes.
Thank you for like this episode if you do. Thank you for joining us and share it with a friend. Thank you, Kellie.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather.